Kia ora te whānau, ko Andrew Doubleday tēnei. This reading we have today, this Gospel, is for the 27th of March 2022, and it's found in Luke. It's chapter 15, verses 1 through to 3 and 11 through to 32. Extremely well known, as you'll discover. Chapter 15, verse 1. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to Jesus. And the Pharisees and scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. Well, actually he tells them three, and this is the third one. Pick it up in verse 11. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and travelled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he'd spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, but here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father and will say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now, his eldest son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he's got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all these years I've been working like a slave for you, and I've never disobeyed your command. You've never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours comes back, you who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours.' But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." There's a great deal that I could say about this. I think about all the messages that I've given over the years on the richness of this story. But I'm going to keep it to a few things today. This is perhaps the best known, if not, be one of the 2 best known of Jesus' parables. And as I was reflecting on it, I recognised this, and it might sound a bit crass, but it has an almost cartoon-like character, and I wondered if all parables do. See, cartoons exaggerate the features of the person so that they're recognisable. If a person has a big nose, a cartoon will emphasise the size and the shape. If they've got sticky out ears, they'll be large and sticky out. There'll be a a sense of exaggeration of the features of the person. And parables, in a way, kind of do the same thing. Just as a cartoon is recognisable, so in parables the characters are readily recognisable. A lot of them are us kind of writ large, and they point to the underlying foibles and strengths of the protagonists in the story. We have the youngest son. He is entitled, according to Jewish law, to a third of the estate. It's really interesting to acknowledge that, because the elder son has what is the portion of the firstborn, and it's a double share. So, for example, if there were 4 sons, the estate would be divided into 5, and the eldest would get 2 bits, and the other 3 would each get 1. In this case, there are only 2 sons. So the estate is divided into 3. The eldest son gets 2 parts, and the youngest son gets 1. It's important to remember that when we get to the bit that of the story about the elder brother. And so we have the youngest son, who knows he's entitled, will be entitled, once his father has died, to 1/3 of the estate. And he brings a callous and appalling sense of entitlement. There's a sense that he's effectively saying to his dad, I wish you were dead. I'm asking for my share. I want it now. I don't want to have to wait for years until you finally croak. I've got a lot of living to do. Just give me what's coming to me. He wants it now. And the father gives it to him. And you kind of wonder, so how did that work? What did he have to sell off in order to be able to realise the assets? What mortgages did he need to take out so that this younger son could get 1/3 of all the father had? What grief did this cause as this process was enacted? We're also told that the father also gave the elder son his share. It says he divided his property between him. So presumably the elder son got all that was left, including probably the mortgages that might have been taken out to bail out the younger. And the younger son, he cashes up and he's gone. He's got his eye on what he wants to do with his life, imagining that this resource is going to last forever, and he's gone. Wow. The older son's portion, 2/3, is the lion's share of the estate. And as we read, it's also already been given to him. Now, I want to suggest it's in real estate. It's not been cashed up and just given the lump sum. It's everything that is ultimately belongs to him. But he doesn't get it. He lives, it seems, with an appalling sense of victimhood. He's his younger brother's victim. He's his father's victim. He doesn't understand that what is coming to him is already his. He's in many ways a more tragic figure than his younger brother. He's mired in bitterness and resentment when everything is actually going his way. Oh. Neither of these sons understand the father's heart. Each in their own way have taken him for granted. The younger abuses the father's generosity with grossly appalling behaviour. As I said, such a sense of entitlement, lacking in insight of what he's doing and how much grief this is causing his father, who, as we discover in the story, yearns for his son, longs for him, wants his restoration. And the elder refuses to believe in his father's generosity. And it's because he brings his own meanness of spirit to all that's going on. He sees everything through his own smallness of vision, through his own victimhood. And he's also totally lacking in insight into how he's behaving. I find the story really quite uncomfortable because it's like a mirror that's held up to me. And there are times that I see both of these brothers reflected in the mirror, both of them present in myself. And it can catch me up, and it's very useful when that happens because it actually helps give a clearer sense of perspective on how I'm living and the attitudes that I'm holding, where I can see in myself the profound sense of entitlement of the younger brother and the unwillingness to see the amount of pain that I might be causing those around me. And I see in myself also that sense of victimhood in the elder brother, where I fail to realize all that is already mine and yet want to blame others when I don't feel it and where things don't seem to be going my way. I don't know if this is true for you, but certainly true for myself. And the real tragedy of the story is that neither of these two brothers recognizes the love and generosity of the father. We call it the parable of the prodigal son. It isn't about that. This is about the overwhelming love and generosity and yearning of the father. This father who yearns for both of his sons, that each of them might step into the fullness of all that can be and is theirs if only they'd recognize it. Father's love that is taken for granted by the younger son and not recognized by the elder son. The father's love that is the glue in all the relationships here. You notice at the end of the story that the elder son refers to his brother as this son of yours. What's he so angry about? It's the father who's been abused, not him. And the father responds, this brother of yours. He's not just my son, he's your brother. I love him just as I love you. This is a story about a father whose heart breaks, his heart yearns for both of his offspring. Who is us? And what a difference it might make if each of us would actually be able to see in God this reflection of the Father's heart. Because this is what Jesus is telling us about. He says, you so often see God, your Father, as mean and curmudgeonly. You see him as a reflection of your own self, not giving you what you think it is you deserve or what it is you need, but as ultimately so concerned for your best interest, so concerned that you might, as he says in John 10, experience life and have it in all its fullness. This is a powerful exposition of the Father's heart, of God's heart for you and for me, if only we can see it. If only we could translate it into our own day-by-day living and recognize that God's purposes for you, for me, are good, always good, nothing less. That God's heart yearns for each of us, that we might step into the fullness of all that is ours. I hope that's useful. God bless you.